So I was curious, as a data virtualization vendor, you dropped the word data virtualization at the beginning itself in terms of the data landscape that you have. Could you explain, like, how is your data architecture set up in terms of, the data where it kind of pulls up, the data management layer, and what are the consumers of this to provide those dashboard and reports to your lines of business?
Yeah, so we take a very flexible approach with that. So when we think about data virtualization, we think of it as a concept first and then a technology second. So we try to make sure that which I'm sure you're very familiar with, we try to make sure that we're very agnostic about where the data is coming from and agnostic about where the data is going to. So we try to have a centralized governed data layer, but that doesn't mean that the data can't skip those layers. And in cases of experimentation, it doesn't mean that we can't have different people building things in our visualization layer that we then try to stand up and make a little more secure and a little more well-governed when we pull them into the virtualization layer. And then we have hardening steps below that where we'll pull it into a data lake or a data warehouse or whatever the need may be to try to get the optimal solution for each of the problems that we're trying to tackle. So it's always a balance of scalability and agility, and we try to make sure that the solutions are matching each of the problems that we're faced with.
Okay, that's awesome. One thing that I heard, Matt, is in talking to the analysts like Gartner during the pandemic, given the reduction in demand, a lot of the CIOs were actually facing budget cuts and maybe some staff reductions as well. So they have been calling into the analysts to talk about what Gartner called as the IT portfolio rationalization. So, given my fixed amount of money, fixed amount of staff, where should I basically focus in terms of the technology landscape? One of the things that Gartner was actually saying, this particular analyst, is that they saw an increase to the cloud migration because that would actually offset the cost from a capital expenditure to an operational expenditure. So I'm kind of curious, did cloud play a role at JM Smucker? And how did that kind of accelerate during the pandemic? So maybe you can talk a little bit about your cloud journey.
Yeah, so from an analytics perspective, I don't think it altered our journey a whole lot. I think we are definitely we definitely understand the scale, the power, and the flexibility that the cloud provides. I think we're taking a little bit more of a measured approach just to make sure that we're matching. Per my comments earlier, we're matching the use case to the need, and we're not kind of jumping in full scale. I'd say definitely in the collaboration space, we have gone entirely to the cloud. We made some steps earlier to make sure that was set up in a way that would really make sure that we could collaborate effectively when we went to this. So we're really excited about the successes there. But from an analytical perspective, this was more accelerating the use of our existing platforms as opposed to drastically changing the need to adopt new platforms.
Okay, got you. So in terms of the cloud, just one question. So is it, are you guys going with a single cloud provider, or are you kind of looking at different cloud providers for the different needs within JM?
Yeah, so we definitely have multiple cloud providers that we work with today. We haven't necessarily concentrated in one cloud provider because most of our data gravity still exists on-prem and most of our BI stack still exists on-prem. We are definitely exploring whether or not that is a significant enough reason for us to stay on-prem, or if we would explore moving certain parts of our stack or fully moving our stack moving forward.
Gotcha. All right, so because that is pretty much in line with many of the companies, about 80% are looking at multi-cloud as the norm. So you talked about data virtualization as being, you very well described it as being source agnostic and consumer agnostic. So I think by having your sources on the on-prem, some of them, and migrating to the cloud, probably that provides the abstraction that you need so that your business users don't care about where the data is actually coming from. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, if the use case matches the speed that they need, they don't really care where it's coming from. They just want the answer and they want it fast. So I think as long as we can provide a way to do that, regardless of the complexity behind the scenes, in a way that makes it easy for them to consume and easy for them to kind of use their creative problem solving skills using data, I think that's what we tend to focus on, and data virtualization certainly helps with that process.
Gotcha. All right. So we talked quite a lot about the analytics, which is one half of your title. You had data science as the other one. So I'm kind of curious what you guys are doing from a data science perspective, and then how many people are kind of working on doing this, and how that kind of complements the analytics that you do.
Yeah, so we've being the enterprise hub, we certainly have use cases all across the organization. So we've got some within our operations space where we're integrating machine learning algorithms with our manufacturing lines. We've got some use cases within our supply chain. So our commodities analysis are using things with using machine learning techniques, using a lot of other types of models to try to help that team. And then, like I mentioned, with what kind of reaction to the pandemic, how can we use some advanced modeling techniques to help get out ahead of what's coming from a demand perspective, given the number of data streams that we have coming in, and really helping to evaluate which data sources are good and which data sources are not good. Because I think a lot of what's happening right now within the data science space is, hey, can I even trust this data as an input to my machine learning model? Because the world has changed so much. A lot of this predictive and prescriptive analytics relies on consistent data for in some cases many years. Well, do we describes what our world is going to look like moving forward? Will it get back to normal? Will it be slightly different than normal? How will it be different than normal? I think those are the things that really make you be cautious when you're doing some of these advanced techniques with data science.